I'm adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, I got it.
Work agenda? You want a work agenda?
No, I'll just take a regular agenda and set out there. All right, Bruce, we got quite a comprehensive reorganization. So get your pen ready.
I tried to catch you tonight. I tried to catch you afterwards, but if not, I may email you. I've got a little ordinance issue out where I live. It's not related to tonight, but I do need your.
Thank you for being here for Tomochichi.
Yeah. If only I had known, I would be on a glass of wine.
I don't know.
Nobody didn't have a conflict with things that she
I know.
They're not gonna be happy when they find out we're the last item on the agenda. I know, bad idea. No, it was the top item we got. The lawyer's not here, I don't think.
because he was he stopped and tried to behind an accident.
Okay, good evening. I think we're about ready to begin. It's the August 30th Planning and Zoning meeting. The first item of business that we're gonna need to have to deal with tonight is we've got two items that are gonna have to make us restructure the agenda. So if you'll bear with me, we're gonna run through the changes and then we'll have to officially approve that. Okay, so. Is the microphone on? Okay, just bear with me, I'm gonna try to read through this. Okay, under the new business, item 1, which was the Tomochichi Road project, that has been moved down to number 7. Okay, there's a couple of reasons for that, and they're legitimate. Okay, under the next item, number 2, has been moved to number 3. Item number 4 remains at 4. No, it goes from 3 to 4, excuse me, that's the lift from the table.
So the Tomochichi is number 2.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain quiet while the board is conducting business. Thank you.
But on the agenda.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Okay, so.
thank you.
When we get over to item 4 on the original agenda, that is gonna become number 1. Item number 5 is gonna become number 2. Item number 6 is gonna become number 5. And item number 7 is gonna become number 6. And other than that, we're okay. So with that being said, I'll ask for a second, move to approve that and then a second.
Excuse me, I move to approve the change in the order of the agenda.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Ballard. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. I think it's 4-0. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we have more people in the room than the room is designated for. For those who do not have a seat, we are going to ask you to please step into the hall. Thank you.
Can y'all turn it up so we can hear out in the hallway, please?
Okay, item number one, which is old number 4, is application 2206 and the Flume application 2201. Gordon Dixon Realty, owner Paragon Consulting Group, agent 10 Janet Road, approximately 1.7 acres, located in land lots 232 and 249 of the Second Land District, requesting a rezoning and amending a future land map use, map R1, single-family residential low density to C2 manufacturing, and also requesting an amendment of the future land use map. Okay, do we have someone here to speak to this?
Mr. Chairman, we need to make an announcement first. The first two items on the agenda are for the city of Orchard Hill. They are not related to Spalding County zoning. Pursuant to an intergovernmental agreement between Spalding County and Orchard Hill, this body sits as the planning commission for the city of Orchard Hill. These items are based on the city of Orchard Hill ordinance and will be heard by the city council of the city of Orchard Hill at the appropriate time when they make their own zoning decision. Your recommendation will go to them.
Okay,
Good evening, Chairman. My name is Jeremy Buffington. I'm with Paragon Consulting Group. I reside at 103 Garden Circle in Milner. What we brought for you today is a rezoning of a parcel along, I think, is it Johnson Road? Name of that street? Janet Road. I'm sorry, Janet Road. It's this parcel right here, the top right corner of this map. Requesting to rezone that to C2 for the purpose of being able to put a manufacturing, a warehouse building behind the existing office that'll kind of parallel that existing warehouse building on the north end of the track there and stretch out towards that residential parcel. And it will basically modify the setbacks on this parcel by rezoning it so that these two uses are conforming and that the new warehouse building will fit on the parcel without exceeding the setbacks. I believe there's another slide that might show you that building a little better if you'll show the other layout. Here's the new warehouse layout and the adjustments of the setbacks for C2. Mr. Dixon owns that piece of property. That's the residential parcel as well as other residential parcels around there. He's kind of been adding on to this development over the years, off and on, more warehouse spaces and such. Right now, he's got a product that he's storing off-site, and he's leasing a warehouse for that purpose. So he wants to bring that back in-house to be a little more economical for him to store those products.
okay. Frank, you have any questions?
Jeremy, we understand this, the building that is going to be demolished, I presume, is that house that they're currently using
Yeah, it's lease space
as the
right now.
office?
There's a small little building right there in the center of the map, but that's not his existing office. The existing office is the T-shaped building there that's adding on to.
Okay, thank you. That's the only question I have.
Walt?
I'm having a little trouble reading the map, and I'm having trouble reading the map, and I'm sorry about it. When I went out and visited the site, what I saw from the street and just can explain to me as a layman. What I saw from the street was a home, it looked like a home had been turned into an office. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then over beside it and back a little bit was a white metal structure that I presume has a storage facility already?
There are several small storage buildings out
Okay.
there around the site.
Okay.
That's probably the one that's checkerboarded right there in the
Okay.
center almost of the map.
So you're
Yes.
adding more storage, basically, is it? You're not eliminating any storage, you're adding more?
Yeah, there's gonna be more stores.
Okay,
there. That's
I
exactly right.
understand, thank you.
Yep, sure.
Bruce?
No, sir, nothing's done.
Okay. I don't have any questions either. Let's get the staff report, and then we'll see if we have any people signed up to speak.
So the staff for both of these cases recommends denial.
Steve, who did it go out?
Mr. Jeremy Buffington already spoke, and Mr. Gordon Dixon. Mr. Gordon Dixon's up next. Mr. Dixon, if you will step forward and state your name and your address for the record, please.
I'm Gordon Dixon, and I live at 1013 East College Street here in Griffin.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion from up front?
Let's hear the staff report and we can proceed.
She did the staff report. She called for denial. If there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Sir, in going through and considering the various aspects of the staff report and where we stand with this, at this time, appears that the best thing to do is to take the staff's recommendation or deny.
Have a motion to deny. Do I have a second? I'll move to second that. I second those thoughts as well. Those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Okay, 4-0. All right, when does this go to the commission?
It actually goes to the City of Orchard Hill.
That's
City of
correct.
Orchard Hill, all
That's
right.
correct.
I don't know the date for that. Do you, Newton?
Pardon me?
Do you know the date for this?
It's the second Monday in September.
Second Monday in September.
Keep in mind, Orchard Hill is represented by Mr. Scott Mayfield at Smith, Welch, and Britton. This is the oddest agenda I've ever had to deal with as council, zoning council for the county because of a number of issues related to this. Mr. Mayfield is the one who will carry this forward and represent the city of Orchard Hill in its zoning hearing.
Make sure you're being picked up. Make sure you're being picked up on the mic.
All right. Okay, the next item on the agenda is, number 2 is the text amendment. It was explained to me that at this time,
I want to make it clear, your motion to deny was to the future land use map or to both, because you need to make it clear.
I thought if you denied one, it was automatic on the other.
Under the Spalding County ordinance, if you deny the future land use map, you have by definition rendered the rezoning action moot. I do not know that that's the case under the Orchard Hill ordinance.
Well, let's just
Just-
assume,
Just to be safe, let's make a second motion to, let's say that we've denied the future land use map, and then let's deny this, I move to deny this application.
okay, have a motion to deny the rezoning. Do I have a second?
Second.
Those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Okay. So
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Chair.
the flume and the rezoning are denied.
Okay.
Okay. Newton, do you want to take a moment and explain why we need to table?
Well, as I said, I do not represent the city of Orchard Hill,
Yeah,
but I represent the applicant in front of the city of Orchard Hill that has submitted a text amendment which accompanies a rezoning application that is governed by the same intergovernmental agreement.
okay,
And what we would ask on that is that this text amendment be tabled to be considered by the planning commission at the same time the rezoning application comes up.
okay. So I'll entertain a motion to table item number 2.
I will so move.
And let me make that clear, that is on behalf of the applicant who has proposed the text amendment, not the city of Orchard Hill and not Spalding County.
Okay,
I'm good with that.
you good with that? I got a second from Frank. Okay, those,
Frank made the motion.
okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, those in favor signify by raising your right hand. So it's tabled. Okay, the next item on the agenda is number 3, SD number 2209, Big Pines LGI Homes LLC owner, 39 Smoke Road, 439 Smoke Road, 497 Smoke Road, and 295 Smoke Road, approximately 283.23 acres located in land lots 219, 198, 230 of the third land district, requesting approval of preliminary plat consisting of 247, lots located within the R1 single-family residential low-density district. Do we have someone here to speak for that?
Mr. Chairman, we do not.
Okay.
The applicant just walked in.
State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Brian McCraney, 3510 Union Church Road, Stockbridge, Georgia, 30281. I work for Planners and Engineers Collaborative here on behalf of LGI Communities. Really here to answer any questions for the commissioners or anything that pops up. I can give a little bit of background on the project. It's 285.23 acres. Zoning was R1 conservation. We had an amendment that passed a month or so ago, maybe 6 weeks. As such, we submitted a preliminary plat for the new site plan, and essentially we are working through getting the approval for the preliminary plat to move on to next steps.
Okay, we've got quite a lengthy list of recommendations. Have you seen those?
They were provided at the previous meeting, that's correct.
Okay.
I don't have them in front of me. I know one of them was in reference to a traffic impact study, which we provided prior to the last meeting. One of them is in regards to sewer capacity certification, which we're actively working with Community Services LLC, Mr. Todd Smith, and CEC in obtaining. So that's where we're at.
Brian, if you don't mind,
Yes,
can you
ma'am.
pull the mic towards you a little bit? Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. You guys have anything up here to ask him about?
Very minor point. Again, trouble reading maps. In looking at what I would call the schematic map, which is the overlay, not broken down to small ones. I believe when I blew it up, I saw notations of walking trail. There is a walking trail
There
provided.
are.
Sun City Peachtree, to be able to tie into their plan, is that still the general plan?
Yes, sir. And we actually contracted CEC to help. We have a lift station designed here, right at the creek crossing. And the idea is to pump up to their, I believe it's pump station A.
Okay.
They have confirmed capacity. They're still,
Okay. If there's no other questions for him, we'll ask for the staff report at this time.
So we do recommend approval with conditions. There are 15 conditions listed. It's my understanding that a portion of these conditions came out of some litigation that occurred.
Yes, ma'am.
And they are the product of the recommendations from across the street. So I would recommend that those conditions stand as recommended by the Superior Court, I believe, state court or Superior Court.
This was part of a consent judgment that was ultimately approved by the Board of Commissioners in 2006.
So what I would recommend in addition to that is per Dr. Ledbetter and also our Water Authority Board to add and I want to make sure I get the language right, the service area condition.
Correct.
That'll be number 16.
The reason,
sir.
and the reason this is back before you with a new preliminary plat is because the plat that was approved in 2006 was modified to some degree and approved by the Board of Commissioners 2 months ago or so.
Did we have anyone sign up to speak?
No, sir. No one has signed up.
Can I ask a question of staff? And it's a relatively minor question, but I was informed by Ms. Ledbetter, Newton, that this is, as a result of the judicial action, that the green space will be dedicated to Spalding County and deeded by property owners. Is that part of the settlement?
Walter, I know that it's part of Ms. Littlefield's conditions. They were required to dedicate green space.
Okay.
As part of the resolution
Okay.
of the case. That was part of it.
And because it's being done by the courts, then it's kind of a standalone issue. It doesn't really relate to us.
Yes.
It's being done by the county pursuant to an agreement they
Okay.
reached to terminate litigation.
One more question for the staff, and this is for Ms. Littlefield. On condition 14, you say following amenity features shall be completed A, B, and C. All other listed amenities, I'm not sure what those are and where they would be listed.
They would be listed out in the LDP. So should they find the soil quality not conducive to a swimming pool and much more conducive to a splash pad and, say, an in-ground trampoline, then we would want those amenities listed out on the LDP as part of the zoning conditions.
Thank
So
you for-
what they would do is post the zoning conditions on their governmental sheet, which is usually third or fourth sheet in a set of plans.
That's correct.
In a set of civil drawings, and then they would provide us a listing of proposed amenities in response to this.
So I'm correct in my understanding that right now, all the amenities required are a clubhouse and a playground. And then if there are changes, they have to come back. Is that what I'm?
No, sir, it means that they have to list them on their LDP. The current amenities that are listed in the conditions
Right.
are proposed and agreed upon by
Right.
the applicant. Should they find that the environment is not conducive to those amenities, they don't have to come back for a zoning change necessarily, but they do have to list any additional amenities on their LDP.
Okay, sure, why not?
Mr. Yeomans, if there are any other questions from the board?
I don't have any.
Yes, sir.
I'm good.
Okay, no one signed up to speak, so I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve with staff recommendations and the addition of item 16 with regard to the service area distribution and checking with the county water and sewer in that regard.
Have a motion to approve with condition?
And I would second Bruce's motion.
Okay, very good. Those in favor signify by raising the right hand. It's unanimous. Okay, the next item on the agenda is
Thank
number 4, which is we're gonna have to do a lift from the table for SD 2202.
Yeah. Okay, I move that application SD 22-02 be lifted from the table for consideration at this time.
Okay, I have a motion to lift. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded. Those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Okay, it's lifted. Go ahead and read the whole item here. Quintarius Burns, owner, 2439 Tieman Road, approximately 50.23 acres located in land lot 233 of the 3rd Land District. Case was tabled on meeting held on April the 26th, 2022. Applicant is requesting to be lifted from table and also requesting an approval of revised preliminary plat consisting of 17 lots within the R1A Single Family Residential District. Do we have someone here to speak to this?
No one has signed up, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Well, I think the simplest thing would be to move on to the staff report, and then we'll proceed from there.
Okay, due to a clerical error, there is actually a recommendation of approval with conditions, which are listed. There are 13 conditions listed. However, the plat that is proposed has not undergone any soil testing. I would like that noted. It has also not undergone any type of any mitigation as far as the grading or anything that they might encounter on the land. So we do anticipate losing 2 lots based on some topography that is out there. The conditions are, do relate in terms of the design standards. We're not allowing any vinyl facades. We also are recommending that they use brick stone and synthetic stone. The development does have to conform to the current UDO, and that is at the time of building permits are issued if the plat is approved, and also all of the standard items that apply to water and sewer as well as fire.
Okay? So I was under the impression that it was just the one lot. You say it's 2 lots?
It's 13 and 15.
13 and 15.
So 15 is, I understand that whenever engineers, please understand that whenever they develop these subdivisions on paper, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have been on the property. So when you look at those 2 lots, I want you to think in terms of being a homeowner on those 2 lots with an acre plus of property. I believe these are each 2 acres plus. Looking at those lots and being able to put not only a house, but also an accessory structure on it. So when we look at those lots, given the soil topography, a house will go on it. You see the building footprint just like I do. A house will fit, but I want to ensure that our residents, because developers develop property and residents have to live on it. So I want to make sure that we're doing the highest and best for our residents. I believe that the property is developed in response to the wetlands that you see there, the riverbed, or the drainage easements that you see there. It is developed responsibly in that regard. I think the roadways are as well, and also the developer will have to install sidewalks and various other amenities. However, I feel that those 2 lots as a planner, and this is just my experience dealing with people, is that we need to be responsive to that so that we don't incur a lot that has to come back for a variance and make it onerous on a property owner.
Okay, thank you. Frank, you have any questions?
No, I concur with my director on that.
Walter?
Nope.
Bruce?
So, Ms. Littlefield, with that, I mean, is that something you have talked through, these conditions and stuff with the?
So we have made the applicant aware of the conditions. They've not reached back out to us with any rebuttal on that. My only goal is to keep an owner from having to have a variance, provided that there's any kind of issue with soils, location of septic, or anything of that nature, in the event that they don't perk and they have to put the house in a very strange place that doesn't allow for an accessory structure or even a play structure for children, a swimming pool, whatever it may be, all of which are accessory structures in our code. I just want to have to prevent a variance from coming back and a 90-day process for a resident whenever that's not something that any of us would want to go through.
Right. So you're seeing like 13, 14, 15 becoming just one lot, number 13, say?
I
and
actually
changing
would-
that road?
I actually would like to see the developer perhaps maybe put a little bit more thought into the engineering of those lots. However, I don't know what the soil tops are. I don't know what the topography of the drainage easement will impact. And also, the other thing that we have to consider is the style of housing that's going to be put forward. The only design guidelines that I have conditioned in here is just the materials. So we've not said that they can build a 3-story house, which our ordinance doesn't necessarily allow. However, a design proposal could be put forward. At the same time, I don't know what the footprint of the house. Our ordinance, I believe, is a minimum of 2,000 square feet for this zoning category. However, I also want to be cognizant and responsive to the needs of residents that we're not only currently pursuing, but also the type of resident that we currently have in Spalding County. So that resident as a whole, we see a lot of accessory structure permits in Spalding County.
Okay. Thank you.
2,500 square feet on the house, pardon me.
That's better.
You know, 2 garages instead of 1.
I guess my question is, since they're not here and they haven't gotten back to you, is this something that we should consider tabling till they can get back to you?
My only preclusion on tabling is that it has moved forward to this position. They have been notified. However, at the same time, it is the wish of the chairman. If it's the wish of the board, I will happily accept a table, and we can do further due diligence to motivate them to be at the next hearing.
That'd be a good idea.
While not a requirement of policy, it is good business.
I mean, that's some pretty significant changes without them here to hear it.
It's not my recommendation that those lots be automatically converted to green space. It's my recommendation that we work with the developer to ensure that we're not placing that burden on our residents.
I have to agree with Ms. Littlefield on that. I mean, our responsibility is to make sure that we do not create things that other people are gonna have to live with. And if she has any concern at all about that, and I see where 13 and 14 could be marginal, I think we need to address that, or give the developer a chance at a later date to address it.
Well, in 15 also, it's pretty dismal right there.
It should be noted that there is a hardship due to the topography and the drainage that's currently laid out here. I believe that there is a stream there. There is a hardship in that case. However, again, because there is a hardship on the developer, doesn't mean we should pass that on to our residents.
Okay, I was looking through your conditions one more time, and I don't see those lots being stricken out of there, or the suggestion there.
No, sir, it's more of it's because I didn't condition it. There's a twofold process there in that there is an LDP still to consider. If those lots do not perk, they will become green space. That's kind of an automatic, and with the fall of trajectory or fall of topography there, that's very possible. I won't say it's imminent. I'm very hesitant to use those words. However, there is a settlement issue that in talking through another engineer that's on staff with Spalding County, it has the potential to not be conducive necessarily to building. And that's more worked out at the LDP phase. That's a big chunk of why I did not want to condition those lots to be stricken or to be necessarily dedicated, or even to condition them in such a way that the developer did not have any leeway to work with the land in regards to due diligence and in regards to the LDP.
Okay, I got you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, gentlemen. There's no other discussion. I'll entertain a motion.
Did you want to table it, Frank?
When people aren't here, I wonder how much interest they have in it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's it.
I know they're operating out of Texas, but at the same time, we make, and I'm saying this as much for y'all as anybody else, we make decisions on this board, and I'm glad to see this big of a crowd. I don't know how you all knew it was my birthday. But we make decisions here that y'all have to live with for a long time. And when we have a doubt about something, and I really appreciate Ms. Littlefield's reluctance just to say, yeah, that's good. If we got any doubt about anything, time does not necessarily heal all wounds, you know. Yes, I would be in favor of tabling this, particularly in light of the fact that the developer is not here.
Is that a motion, Mr. Harris?
I would so move.
Okay, I have a motion to the table.
Second.
Have a second. Those in favor signify by raising your right hand. It's unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I believe by the rearranged agenda, the next item up is a text amendment. 2202, Spalding County requesting to amend the zoning ordinance to allow for the regulation of lighting for development and established buildings within the county. Guess you're up.
Yes, sir. So I am especially thrilled about this lighting ordinance for two reasons. The number one reason is because we have a serious issue with regulating lighting in Spalding County. I actually drafted these regulations for more than one other jurisdiction. This is my probably 6th round with lighting. I'm a big fan of treating lighting very similar to stormwater and keeping it on the property that produces it. So whenever it falls on your property, it becomes your responsibility. So with lighting, if you're going to produce it, you need to keep it on your property as well. Have had several residents reach out to me in regards to not only commercial development, industrial development, but also just people adjacent to them having very bright lights on their property and shining into their property and causing a nuisance and disturbing. As such, we do not have any mechanism to regulate that. We also do not have any mechanism to enforce any kind of restrictions on that. As you have seen since I have been here, almost every zoning application that has come forward for any type of commercial development, the lighting has been severely restrictive, I would argue, and extremely responsive to not only our residents, but also to the needs of our community. This lighting ordinance, I understand it is very lengthy. Some of the language is very technical. But again, this is an ordinance that Mr. Galloway, I'm very grateful to say, has provided some great oversight to. And again, this is my 5th or 6th rodeo with this type of ordinance. I would entertain any questions on this at current. I do think there is someone signed up to speak. Is that correct? Do we have anybody? Not today? Okay. But I would entertain any discussion or any questions from the board at this time on this topic.
Well, I'm glad to see you do this because candidly, a subdivision developed within a half a mile of me, and the developer made no hidden intention that they would definitely address the downward lighting. When the development started, then they said they couldn't find any fixtures like that. There is a concept called dark sky. And 10 years ago, you had to drive 150 miles out from New York City to find a dark sky. I grew up in the country. A lot of my family did. We love a dark sky. And the intrusion of neighborhood light does not do anything to help the quality of life. So I'm glad to see you pursuing this.
Thank you.
There's not a lot to be opposed to that. There's
I
no
would
other-
echo what Kelly said. This is highly technical, and there are very specific industrial terms related to lighting in this ordinance with which you are probably not familiar.
Could you use the mic?
I'm sorry, I thought I
I can't
was.
even hear you.
What I said was, this is a highly technical ordinance. Kelly is correct on that. but it uses standard industrial terms, and it provides a mechanism for lighting control and direction for most developments, and it segments them according to size, which is probably appropriate. We will have modification, just formatting issues and renumbering some sections that goes to BOC by that time, by the next month when it comes up. But those are the only changes that will be presented from the ordinance you have in front of you.
Very good. There's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I really think Frank should make the motion on this, since he's been talking about dark skies initiatives for the last, for as long as I've known him. I'd like to give him the honor of making a motion.
Could I make one
Sure.
addition? Under section 201-4, I would like for us to add LEDs.
I think they're in there.
Jesus.
Okay.
Are you referring under number, under letter A?
Under letter A, this would be 5.
Yes, sir.
So that's
201.4?
-4, luminaire source type 3.
Yeah, I got it.
That would be light emitting diodes.
Yes, sir.
All right,
And having
Oh,
adopted that,
as fifth item under A?
yeah.
yes.
Gotcha.
Frank, to add that in, if you would, I would recommend that you allow Kelly to also develop a definition for LED. We know it's a light emitting diode, but let's put it in the ordinance.
That would be fine. Thank you, Council. Subject to Ms. Littlefield developing that criteria, I would like to propose that we adopt this for Spalding County's Unified Development Ordinance.
All right, have a motion to approve, to have a second.
Yes, I will probably second Mr. Harris's motion.
Okay, those in favor signify by raising your right hand. It's unanimous.
Thank you, gentlemen. My pom-poms are upstairs.
All right, so the next item up, number 6, text amendment 2203, Spalding County requesting to amend the zoning ordinance to allow for mobile food vendors to operate within the county.
I'm gonna yield to her. Give me a minute. So, whenever I first came to Spalding County, one of the very first things I got accosted with in a hallway conversation by not one, not two, but 3 parties that were not only part of the staff, but also part of the elected officials, to say, when are we going to write a food truck ordinance? And I said, as soon as I can get to my computer and get a login. So I sat down. This is, again, another ordinance that I have written in multiple jurisdictions, and with the help of Ms. Stephanie Wyndham, our county attorney, and also, of course, Mr. Galloway. Food trucks were completely unregulated in Spalding County and therefore not allowed. We did not have a mechanism to not only permit them, we also didn't have a mechanism to regulate them. We also did not have a mechanism to allow them. So with the advent of this ordinance and a valiant effort on this entire team, we have given you our Spalding County food truck ordinance, and I will give the details over to Ms. Wyndham.
You have a table of ordinances to be amended, which, those are in the UDO, and then there will be, there will be an additional, resolution to be passed by the Board of Commissioners that actually, will be known as the Spalding County Food Truck Ordinance, that, will be a part of the regular code of Spalding County. And it, addresses food trucks as well as ice cream trucks, because we would not want to leave out ice cream trucks. But the table of ordinances to be amended shows you what we're changing in the actual zoning ordinance, and it's definitions, and then adding as a permitted use, a mobile food vendor in non-residential zoned areas.
I would also like to add to Ms. Wyndham's comments that in a post-COVID world, we saw that restaurants, if you had a favorite restaurant pre-COVID, you may or may not have that restaurant anymore. And one of the great saviors of the restaurant industry in Metro Atlanta was the food truck industry coming to we saw a sharp rise in it across Metro Atlanta. So I would like to take the opportunity for a moment, if allowed, to advocate for a moment for our favorite restaurants. I lost my favorite restaurant to COVID, but now it's mobile, and I'm stalking it all through Atlanta. I would invite anybody to take a drive over to any of our neighboring municipalities on Friday nights whenever they have their food truck festivals, whenever they have their First Friday or First Saturday events, even into the city of Griffin. There's a camaraderie that goes with food. There's a community that goes with food because people like food. And in a post-COVID world where we're still distancing, we're still working on figuring out how to navigate this whole new norm that we're in, I would strongly advocate for the recommendation of approval for this ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it is not designed as competition for our favorite restaurants. It's designed as an enhancement.
So if the Varsity Food Truck was at one of our major churches in Spalding County last week or week before that, were they in violation?
We
They
did
were.
not have an ordinance.
Does the city have one? Because I thought maybe they did.
City does. They do.
City does, they do.
Okay.
They do, or they do,
The
yeah.
city does.
But we're compatible. I mean, there's no,
We're superior.
yeah, well, sure. I should have known that. Forgive me.
We did
I
not
will
base
not
this
make that
ordinance
mistake.
off the city's
Okay.
ordinance.
No, sir.
Yeah,
I did not-
I thought they'd gone ahead and done it, and we were kind of slow, but it looks like we got there now.
Hey, rev up the engine, let's roll.
Yeah, okay. Good by me.
Mr. Chairman, as a point of technicality, Ms. Wyndham provided us with an updated version that each of you have on the dais this evening, and that's what we would be voting on, is the updated version.
Is there a change over the version I read earlier? Is it the same as I read earlier?
It's more ordinance-like.
It's more ordinance-y. Okay, good. Well, that's good. I like that.
Just as a point of clarification, tacos still will be available.
Okay.
Thank you.
And ice cream.
All right, if there's no other discussion, oh, you got
Can I
it?
ask a couple questions?
Sure.
Okay, I did have a couple just going through here. Again, since you specifically brought up our ice cream trucks, I do see that item J there says no external speakers, sound equipment, or other devices, and I don't think I'd ever know where ice cream truck was if I didn't hear the music coming from ways away, so that means they're gonna have to do away with all their music on ice cream truck?
So ice cream trucks are allowed to have sound equipment or other methods of attracting customers. Those just shall not be operated before 9 a.m. or after 9 p.m.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. One other item that I noticed there, let's see which one it was. No mobile food vendor shall conduct business on public streets or in public right-of-ways except as a part of county-sponsored or approved special event permit. I have been in other locations that did have food trucks, and they were acceptable and approved, and there were subdivisions that actually used that as a promotional thing, and like a couple of nights a week, they would have a food truck come into that neighborhood and sell and stuff. So would that preclude them from being able to do such as that?
They would be required to seek out a special event permit. There's a 30-day lead time on that, and it goes before the Board of Commissioners for approval. It's also evaluated at the round table for future planning, or by future planning.
And would there be a cost associated with that each time they were to do
I
something?
believe it's $25 for the special event permit. It's a minimal cost at this time. if they're a registered food, if it appeases the council or the commission, we can most certainly evaluate that fee schedule in conjunction with all of our fees, which we're currently analyzing. However, we can evaluate that as part of food vendors. If they're registered in Spalding County, they have a business license in Spalding County, they can be exempt, not necessarily from the evaluation of the special event, but they can be included as part of the event permit as a whole rather than having to pull their own. We can certainly evaluate that.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
There's no other discussion. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the text amendment 22-03.
Have a motion to approve 2203.
And I second it, but I want to make sure, Ms. Wyndham, will one single motion cover it? Because you have these other, you have this table up front, so one motion will cover everything?
One motion will cover everything. The table is really just for your
Cross-reference?
edification.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I want to get it, all the
Yes,
i's
sir.
dotted and t's
Thank you.
crossed.
All right, have a motion and a second. Those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Okay, it's unanimous.
And Mr. Chairman, I hope I'm not out of line, but I'd like to thank Ms. Littlefield and Ms. Wyndham for doing these. These are both, I think, good steps, and we're grateful to have their expertise,
I agree.
particularly on the lighting. Honestly, it was so technical. I read it, but I'm not sure I understood half of it.
Well, thank you so much for the kudos, but I'd also like to include Mr. Galloway in that, as he does provide an extreme amount of supervision to our grand ideas.
Thank you.
And Newton knows how much we love him.
Okay, we're ready for item number 7, application 2209Z, Clinton C. O'Brien and Sandra O'Brien Malloy, owners, HFG Development Agent, 480 Tomochichi Road, approximately 85.9 acres, located in land lot 49 and 50 of the 3rd Land District, requesting a rezoning from AR1 agricultural and residential and R2 single-family residential to C2. See, we have someone here to speak to that. Come on forward and state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Chairman, let me make a quick announcement. Ms. Wyndham will be covering this on behalf of the county. Ms. Wyndham will be covering this on behalf of the county due to a conflict that I have.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Stephen Jones, the law firm of Taylor English Duma. My address is 1600 Parkwood Circle, Suite 200, Atlanta, Georgia. As always, it's a pleasure to be up here before you. I'm here today on behalf of HFG Development. I'm accompanied by Mr. Al Hosford of HFG Development. Application before you is 22-09 Zulu. Next slide, please, Ms. Morales. It fronts on Arthur K. Bolton Parkway. That's Highway 16. You'll see the parcel outlined here. It also fronts on Tomochichi and Chi Hall Roads. It consists of 85.19 acres. Next slide, please. You will see a zoomed-in version of this. It has a direct curb cut on AKB, which you will recall is one of the specific conditions in the ordinance for development and curb cuts off of AKB. They must be existing. Next slide, please. You can see that curb cut here. Next slide, please. This tract, as many along the highway corridors in Spalding County, has a split zoning. It's got AR in the interior of the tract, AR1, and R2 along its frontages. Next slide, please. The Spalding County Comprehensive Plan and its associated future land use map designate certain areas in the county as targets for employment centers. This is an excerpt from the comprehensive plan of the county designating the entire AKB East corridor from the city limits to I-75 as right for industrial development. The dotted line, just for clarity, you've got actually 3 nodes. You've got 1, 2, and 3 you'll see on the map, and then the dotted line encompasses anything that fronts on Highway 16. Next slide, please. So the request before you is to rezone the parcels from AR1 to R2, from AR1 and R2 to C2 for development of a 1 million square foot industrial facility. You'll see it has a primary access on Highway 16, for truck entrances. It's also got an auxiliary entrance on Hall Road. And the target market for this, the size of the building is particularly important. We've heard a large demand in the market, not only in Spalding County, but in the surrounding areas, for large Fortune 500 companies which need substantial amounts of space. The target market for those, or the target facility for those, is 1 million square feet. And if you drop below 1 million square feet, that significantly hampers the prospective companies and brings you out of the criterion for many Fortune 500 companies, which again is our target market. So to go forward, and we'll talk about staff's recommended conditions, the vast majority of which we consent to, it's important to keep that consideration in mind as the target for who we're trying to draw into the county, the type of caliber of employer we're trying to attract with this facility. Next slide, please. This is just without topo. It's a little bit cleaner to see. Next slide, please, Ms. Morales. And here it is overlaid over existing site conditions. Next slide. So again, we talked about Fortune 500 companies. 1 million square feet is about the lowest that they will go in their evaluation. Any less, and we're kind of kicked out of the market. This facility is aimed at 250 to 300 employees based on size and based on what our broker Cushman & Wakefield is telling us, at a target rate, at a target wage between $18 and $35 an hour. The estimated building improvements, the improvements on site, the taxable improvements, excluding tenant improvements or owner improvements, that's just the shell of the building itself, we're looking at about $100 million. There'll be an additional tax base of personal property inside of permanent improvements or whatever those may be. If you use the tax assessor's ad valorem tax calculator, that equates to, when you plug in the 100 million value based on comps in the area, for instance, Renai is a comp we used in Green Valley. That results in a ad valorem tax increase on the property of $1.4 million per year in net return to the county. Next slide, please. What you have here is this is your staff's recommended conditions, and these are the edits that we have made to clarify those. Number one, being condition number one, there shall be a 50-foot buffer. It's set along property zoned AR1. We've clarified that to say those properties directly abutting, and also clarified that the buffer will be 10-foot undisturbed and 40-foot a planted buffer
Mr. Chair.
in addition.
Mr. Chair,
Okay, guys, let's hold it down.
thank you.
That would be a 10-foot undisturbed buffer. The remaining 40 feet would be graded within the project scope at the completion of the project, then replanted with Ms. Littlefield's favorite condition, a staggered double row of evergreen trees consisting of no more than 1/3 of each species, so no more than 33.3% of the same species. Condition number two is that there shall be along all road frontages, including Tomochichi and Hall Roads, and this is our own proposed condition, a 25-foot buffer consisting of a 10-foot undisturbed buffer and a 15-foot planted buffer, again with the same criteria about double staggered evergreen trees consisting of no more than 33.3% of the same species. It's important to note when looking at these conditions as well, when we're talking about screening and sound, and I'm sure you'll hear from some of the public comments about visibility of the facility, sound from the facility, things like that. The topography of this site brings the building, once it's developed, a minimum of 10 feet down to almost 20 feet below grade of the existing roadways. So when you have that 50-foot or 25-foot berm buffer, that will in effect also act as a berm because it will sit at least 10 feet above the project site. Number three condition is unmodified from your staff's recommended conditions. That is that any curb cut on Highway 16 will require GDOT approval, and GDOT will dictate the improvements within its right-of-way. Number four, parking shall provide landscaping islands in the regular car parking and landscaping along the front of the building. Number five, again, and the only conditions that we modified you'll see with strike through and underlines are our changes to your staff's conditions. Number five, all, and this goes to your ordinance that you just recommended approval on, imposing a condition as a stopgap till that ordinance is adopted. All lighting shall be night sky compliant and provide for the least impact on adjacent properties. Number six, All parking shall be oriented to the internal operations of the site. Natural vegetation shall be preserved within a majority of the wooded reserve portion of the southwest corner of the concept plan, so that if permitted by the Spalding County Health Department, a portion of this area may be used for a septic tank. Number 8, all solid waste disposal mechanisms must be internally oriented and shall be enclosed. All signage must be approved separately. Ms. Morales, will you take a few slides back to the concept plan? That's fine, thank you. So, Planning Commissioners, this is the request before you. Again, it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's consistent with the plan of the county to develop the 16 corridor for employment centers as noted on its future land use map. It's also consistent with recent actions of this board as well as the Board of Commissioners to rezone similar and nearby property, most recently across Highway 16 for comparable uses. The distinguishing factor between this facility is its target market. And again, that target market is we're shooting for a high caliber with the size of the facility. Again, it's a very tight market. So with that, with all of those considerations, we'd ask you to vote to recommend approval of this with the conditions as proposed by the applicant, consistent with your staff's recommendation of approval, consistent with the comprehensive plan, the future land use map, and precedential zonings in the nearby area and along the 16 corridor. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would like to reserve any remainder of my time for rebuttal. It's acceptable. And then if any of the commissioners have any questions, be happy to address those.
Okay, if you'll just stay right there, we'll go through the commission here and see if they have some questions for you directly. Frank?
I'm good right now, but I reserve the right to ask again.
Ditto.
Okay, on your layout there, I see up on the north side there, you have overflow parking
That's right.
listed, but then down on the right lower corner, you got potential additional truck parking. Is your plan for that potential additional truck parking?
Ms. Morales, would you go one slide back? Initially, we had targeted that for additional truck parking. However, your staff's recommended condition sets that aside to be open space. The only modification that and we're consenting to that, the only modification that we've made to that is you'll see the targeted drain field. The notion for this project is for it to be sewered and tie in to the development that you'll remember across 16. However, as a backup plan, we have studied the soils out there, and so we've got the primary there. We're only asking for a modification of the condition to the extent the health department says it's permissible, do a drain field there.
Okay, so that's the corner down there you're talking about with the sewer?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, Commissioner.
All right, just wanted to be sure.
The question I had is as you enter the property, is the proposed access lane off of I-16, is that gonna be for trucks primarily?
Yes, Commissioner. That is the primary truck entrance.
Okay. So the idea is not to have any trucks on the other two roads there, Tomochichi or otherwise?
No, the primary traffic will be coming off 75 and hitting on the 16 entrance, and then exiting on the 16 entrance and heading back to the interstate.
All right.
Stephen, I have a question at this point. I don't know how many jobs this would generate, but it looks to me like there's no place for the employees to park.
So, Commissioner Harris, you'll see you have employee parking at the north and the south, or you could call it
Why do we have that many truck spaces?
the truck court. That's a standard number of spaces that the engineers put for this size facility. So you've got those on the east and the west, and then bounded by the employee parking on the north and the south.
So are we looking at this probably as nothing more than a logistics center?
We don't have there is no selected end user. The end user is contingent upon the results of the Board of Commissioners vote. Again, there are certain selected industries and companies that pick their facilities based specifically on, or predominantly on, the size of the facility. Yeah. So this is, in essence, conceptual. We could have an end user that may require less truck parking, but again, this is targeted to a certain sector of companies or a certain echelon of companies.
Okay, that answers it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Staff report.
All right, so there are actually two staff reports that go with this. This is a development of regional impact, and the Three Rivers Regional Commission did send this out to all of our, the regional participants, to include GDOT, as well as this Georgia Soil and Water Commission had a cursory, I'm hearing bells. There's a cursory review of the project. There were no comments made. GDOT has determined that AKB, as we have Arthur K. Bolton Parkway, since we have designated it as an industrial corridor, that it is suitable for commercial traffic of this nature. They are aware of the need pardon me. Give me a second, please. GDOT has looked at this roadway as needing to evaluate for XL decel, and we will do that as we do the land disturbance component. Could we possibly make a little bit more noise? And so, the whole idea, though, is that Georgia Soil and Water has taken a cursory review, and they feel that the measures that Spalding County has already expressed in their LDP process, that we will continue forward with that in the evaluation of the impacts of this type of development on the stream. Right now, the state of Georgia does require a 25-foot buffer. We do not have any extension beyond that in our ordinance to require anyone to provide a buffer more than 25 feet around a stream, and that is even if it's an intermittent or ephemeral. That's the the development of regional impact report. Worked for disaster recovery for 3 years for the state of Florida. Apologize. The staff report is before you. We do recommend conditional approval, as Mr. Jones pointed out. They do have amendments that they wish to make to it. The site was not provided, the application did not provide us with any topography on this, and those are recommendations that we will happily entertain from the commission. However, those decisions are normally made at the LDP level. The general concept is to make sure that this is buffered accordingly, because land is not flat. We get to make zoning conditions to the development, and the staff recommendation is before you. The commercial development, there have been comments made that the commercial development is not surrounding the property in order to support in excess of 250 employees. We are currently evaluating measures to support the industrial development that is currently coming in on Highway 16. We are working diligently not only with the Development Authority to provide those commercial users, to provide those not only sit-down but also fast food restaurants, as well as the appropriate services that our incoming employees will need. And we also are looking to work with the applicant to make the improvements along Highway 16 to provide for the commercial influx and outflux of traffic. We also will be recommending that no traffic be on Cheehaw Road, as it is not an appropriate road for industrial development. Should the council or the commission wish to recommend that that road has to be brought up to industrial standards, please be aware that there is a stream crossing involved in that road. So I do not make that recommendation lightly, as I want to be as conducive as possible. I want to be as responsive as possible to development and what we have before you, but I also want to be as responsive as possible to our residents as well. Road improvements are not cheap, and to run commercial vehicles over local county roads is not fair to residents, because we cannot keep up with the pace needed for those improvements. That would be on the onus of the developer. Others, of course, we have the night sky lighting as required. The way that the buffering is recommended to preserve as much of the natural vegetation. It's pretty thick out there if you have not driven by the site. I've actually been out there on 2 occasions, one on a bright sunny day with Ms. Morales as our new planner to show her how buffers actually function and work. She walked into the property about 15 feet on more than one location, and we got to play Where's Waldo with her. Fortunately, she survived the incident but forfeited a pair of sneakers on it. As country living is not necessarily conducive to fashionable sneakers. The other thing that I would like to also point out is the solid waste. In working with these developments, we've recommended that they have those mechanisms in place and have a mechanism with which to deal with that, whoever their tenant may be. As we don't know who the tenant is and we don't know what process they will be utilizing within that building, we want to be as responsive to every potential tenant that may potentially be evaluating Spalding County. I think that's the longest staff report I've ever given you, Mr. Yeomans.
All right, we appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any questions up here?
I just in going through it before the meeting, and I've already forgotten what or the applicant's conditions were, but on the staff report we got, number 2 says there shall be a blank. And I wondered what there shall be.
Those are the buffers. I'm not really sure what happened with the staff report, but those are the buffers, and we're recommending a 25-foot buffer along
Okay.
any adjacent AR property.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And and the applicant spelled that out in detail, so.
They wish to cut it down to 10-foot undisturbed and 15-foot planted back. We're recommended that it be completely undisturbed.
Okay, that's really what I need to know.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. And my apologies on that. It is a clerical error on my part.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Bruce, you have anything?
Not this time.
Okay, we have a number of people that have signed up to speak. What I would encourage you to do is when you come up and use your time that you have, if one person comes up and states that you are afraid of the traffic or you don't want this in your backyard, then perhaps the next person could express a different thought or additional thought so that we don't get that replicated 50, 60 times, however. So how much time are we going to allot?
It's actually 3 minutes, and when you come up and speak, please state your name and your address. Once you state your address, you'll receive 3 minutes to make your statement. Ms. Wyndham is keeping time for us this evening as the parliamentarian. At the end of the 3 minutes, you'll hear a beeper go off, so that will be the end of your time to speak. Please let the next person come up and share their thoughts if you don't mind. So we'll get started this evening.
That'll be fine. Let's go.
Mr. Jerry McNeely.
Hey, good evening. Jerry McNeely, 131 Cheehaw Road. I was born and raised on Yumacraw Road, which is a street over. I graduated Griffin High in '93. I know y'all's jobs are hard. I mean, I've volunteered many times here. I was a poll worker for 10 years, and I was on the GOP thing for a bunch of time. I know y'all's job's not easy, and a lot of people don't respect y'all's job. I'm in opposition of the plan as written. I think that's just too large a place for where it's at. I know you said you like country. I was born and raised in the country. I bought this house 2 years ago to be my retirement house, a little 1,200 square foot, 2-bedroom house. Ain't much to it, but it was gonna be my retirement home. And then to find out this, I was, kind of disturbed. A couple of things. I'm a mechanic. I work on big trucks, been around big trucks my entire life. To have 400 tractor trailers sitting in this parking lot, my concern is like all this runoff of diesel fuel and the fumes, the toxins and stuff. If y'all ain't never been it, go to the truck stop on weekends and you'll smell that and you'll see that. There is a creek there. That creek feeds another creek, which internally ends up in High Falls State Park. And I hadn't seen any kind of environmental impact studies or anything like that. The next thing is traffic. Highway 16 and High Falls Road, there's been a lot of traffic. It's had some serious accidents and stuff. And as a tractor trailer coming out, I guess they would redesign the road and put a red light there, because there's no way a tractor trailer is going to cross that road to go left to the interstate. I also know truck drivers, they're going to take the shortest route out. And with that driveway on Cheehaw Road, if they're bobtail dropping hook, I'm sure they're going to jump right out, get on that road, and they're going to do what they want to and then worry about a fine later. That's gonna happen. I think y'all, I don't know if y'all got the one on Wallace Road, where they're already going down Jackson Road to pick up 155. Ms. Flowers was talking about that the last time. So that's a concern of mine. And then 300 parking for employees. You know, that's a lot of traffic in and out all night long, and I just don't think it's set up for that. And then the next thing brings me like to a safety. We're gonna have people coming in and out all hours of the night. I don't know them people. You know, what about the safety of our neighborhood? Then another thing is, what about the impact of our property devaluating? You know, I was studying some cases here the other night about DeKalb County, had the same thing happen, and the residents got together and sued the county, and, you know, the county lost a couple $1 million. Then there was all right, thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. McNeely. Richard Crowley.
Okay, you're gonna have to hold your applause. Let's get through this.
My name is Richard Crowley. I live at 64 North Walker's Mill Road. I've already heard a lot tonight about things going on, but I want to ask y'all about the big picture and what the county's going to do for infrastructure. Currently, I've looked up the wrecks from January 1st to yesterday at High Falls. At and near High Falls Road, there were 15 accidents. Keep that in mind. How many more is going to be there with additional trucks? And you can find that on Gears. That's done by the state. Sight distance. You're talking about primary entrance off of 16. He didn't say nothing about a secondary entrance off of Cheehaw Road, but you know they're going to use it. You know that road and the infrastructure is not going to support tractor-trailer trucks. It's not wide enough. It will not accommodate it. Highway 16 is a principal arterial road. Cheehaw Road is considered a local road. Tomochichi is considered a minor collector. High Falls Road is considered a major collector. I don't understand how you can do that and put all those cars and trucks on a local road. Some of those roads haven't been paved in years. And then traffic. Have y'all asked GDOT to do a traffic light warrant at that location? You got a lot of trucks going to be turning left. If they can't use the High Falls Road, does that mean they're going to U-turn, or are they going to go straight across? Somebody needs to do that. This needs to be done and considered before this is approved. All we have to do is look to our east from here and see what's going on in Locust Grove and McDonough. You have multiple million-square-foot buildings. You have trucks everywhere. You have the local residents that are leaving. The road I live on has filled up on the other end from Henry County residents that can no longer stand it. They can't even get in and out of their driveway. Are we going to be able to do that? And then we talk about a comprehensive zoning plan. That was done years ago, but you know, every time, it's always, you're coming back and you're wanting to change things rather than it be set. As I look around and I look on Google Earth and driving it, I know that all these there's homes around this location, no businesses. You're going to have issues with noise abatement, lighting, as was mentioned earlier. Those need to be taken into consideration. I asked that you put it in an industrial park over there, but I don't even believe y'all have a million-square-foot building over there.
Deania Ray.
Hi, My name is Dina Ray. My husband, Richard Ray, we live at 73 Parham Road. We are here tonight in opposition to this development. We have a few concerns that all of these people here tonight have talked about for several evenings. We do have the EPD concerns. Tomochichi and Chihal roads are very narrow and cannot handle 350 employees plus going down into that road. There's been a lot of casualties like he talked about. Also, too, we have noticed some public hearing signs that says rezoning to C1 and C2, so there's some more clerical errors here. So we're not sure what is what there. Also, the road repairs, are y'all ready to burden the taxpayers on the road repairs? They're awful. Let's talk about the comp plan. You're going to be adopting the 2040 comprehensive plan in September, and we have several things in the comp plan that goes against this warehouse. Y'all have spent several $1 million in the growth of the industrial park, and this warehouse would fit perfectly there. Spalding County's vision statement talks about protection of the environment, the royal charm. Please reconsider to keep this vision statement true in all aspects of rural, rural residential zoning areas. This area is highly populated, unlike a lot of the areas along Highway 16. Please look at other areas that best suits this project. Impact fees and tax incentives. This Mr. Developer is actually advertising this property to get tax incentives with the purchase of this warehouse. We just wanted to, y'all explain that to us. In the comp plan, it discusses recommendations on refining Spalding County's building and site plan requirements. Please consider the size of this facility and the environmental impacts that we've discussed tonight. There will be at least 42 acres of concrete, so we're really worried about the runoffs and stuff. The comp plan also discusses Spalding County to evaluate code revisions to support conservation goals that go towards clearing and tree protection standards. Therefore, we would like to get a 75-foot buffer with an undisturbed property, not evergreen trees. Leave the trees and the natural habitat around the project and around the creek. Tighter restrictions on land development were suggested on the new development, not displacing residents. We've got some residents putting their homes up for sale to avoid this 1 million square foot building in their front yards. Anyway, so we hope that you deny this development, but if you do consider it, we ask that you put some major conditions on this property because of these reasons that we discussed tonight. Also, Mr. Galloway, I think I met you in Fairburn a couple of weeks ago where you actually negotiated with the applicant on a rezoning request on a property on Bohannon Road. In the public hearing, you actually represented those residents and actually was able to negotiate with the applicant some conditions, so please consider that again here tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Ray. Brian Farrell.
Mr. Chair, if I may, all comments are to be made to the board. Thank you.
Brian Farrell, 505 Musgrove Road, Griffin, Georgia. I come to ask you guys to, at a minimum, table this for some reconsiderations. My concern is for the health of this entire crowd right here that lives close to where this development is going to be. An average tractor trailer produces 21 tons of CO2 a year. You're going to put 400 of those, putting out 8,492 tons of CO2 right onto my neighbor's property. They have to breathe. There is proven study after study of developments around truck stops with people coming down with cancer, heart disease, lung disease, brain disease from noxious fumes coming from tractor trailers. You have 400 idling trucks. You're asking to kill everybody in this room with medical issues. These are healthy people that are getting sick. Secondly, that minimal amount of property tax you're going to collect won't even cover the number of children that are going to be coming out of that development that you approved. That's going to cost your county $5 million a year in schools. It's not worth the tax money, guys. It's not worth the jobs to take everybody's health and roll the dice. Other municipalities put a 3-minute idle. If this is something that you guys have the ability to do, consider any truck that's not moving should idle no more than 3 minutes before it's shut off. You're going to fight truckers on that because they like to have their air conditioning. But that is one thing that large cities are doing. New York City, if you idle more than 3 minutes, it's a significant fine, $2,000. If we have to move this development forward, please consider putting idle restrictions for a clean idle on these trucks. Everybody's worried about roads. Everybody else is worried about their neighborhood. I'm worried about my neighbor's health. That's my only concern for being up here today. Please take their health into consideration and at a minimum table this till we come up with some more restrictive ideas about the number of trucks that's going to be when this development goes through. Thank you for your time.
Allison Smiley.
My name is Allison Smiley, 2078 Rehoboth Church Road, Griffin, Georgia. I've lived in this community my whole life, and I was here on May the 30th speaking against a rezoning on the other side of 16 for 348.56 acres from AR2 to what would allow warehouses. Well, we lost that one. It was rezoned. I felt like we talked longer about a car wash than we did about 348 acres. I've lived here my whole life. We have a cattle farm out our way. So I'm not speaking to last month's, I'm speaking to this, and I'm speaking to the whole plan of how we're going forward. We only get one chance to develop that corridor on 16 from I-75 going into Griffin. We have beautiful homes out there on both sides of 16. Why not keep it agricultural, residential, make it a nice neighborhood? We know growth is coming. There's growth all over the places we've mentioned in Henry County. It's not pretty. There's enough warehouses there that the Ark of the Covenant could be in one of them, and we don't know about it. So do we need more warehouses? Do we need this building that it doesn't even sound like we have a company that wants to be there yet. We did last month have one commissioner vote against it because he didn't think we had enough information. And I think that we need to plan and make this, take our one shot at developing this. I heard the phrase highest and best. I don't think what we got on our other side of the highway is the highest and best, and I don't think this is the highest and best. I think we can do better for Spalding County, for our health, for our neighborhoods, for a beautiful part of the county that I'd like to see stay beautiful.
Okay.
Hi, sorry, I talk loud anyway. I'm Kay Wimpy. I live at 164 South Walker's Mill Road. I have been in this area, and my family and many of these people here, over 5 generations, have been in this community. DOT is not approving any more drives off of 16. This property is already being advertised as 480 Tomochichi Road. So they're planning to come off Tomochichi Road. Those trucks are not going to do a left U-turn because you are going to have a major accident, and they are not going to turn those big rigs. You will make the people who live on Cheehaw Road, now their road will become unlivable because they will have trucks going up and down all night long. The additional 300 proposal for truck parking, which the gentleman said they weren't going to do, was going to make this a truck stop. And with truck stops, you bring the element of human trafficking and drug trafficking that you're already going to bring with this trucking. Not every property is appropriate for commercial buildings. Look at what happened on North Walker's Mill Road, the old Dundee property. They subdivided it in acreage from 5, 10, 15 acres, built wonderful homes that helps your tax base because what's going to go here is going to get a tax credit and not add anything to the tax base in this community. There's been a recent article that in Spalding County, over 39% of homes sold are being bought by management companies. That's rental property. You will have rental property in this county with nobody having any commitment to this county whatsoever. We do not want to be Henry County. We do not want to be McDonough. It is further being advertised that this is a South Clayton Henry Industrial Park building. Nothing for Spalding County. So you are not adding anything to Spalding County. The people who live out here, they ride their bikes. Their children ride those bikes on Cheehaw and Tomochichi Road. People ride their horses out there. Now we're going to contend with 18-wheelers and will not be able to live within our own community. And I'm going to end this by saying, and when I asked, I think it would be nicer for some people on this board and sitting here to be nicer to these people in this community. I asked when I was going to ask a simple question about the agenda, because there were only 6 items on the new one and you moved us to number 7. It was a simple question. I did not need to be talked to like I was some rag on the street. I would ask, as this community is asking, that this be denied.
Shad Mitchell.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you one more time to quit the applause. If you guys can't do that, we'll just turn off the public comment at this point. Now let's listen.
Shad Mitchell.
Is he in the hall? Is there a Chad Mitchell in the hall?
David Lynch. Shad?
Hi, I'm Shad Mitchell. My address is 2444 High Falls Road. The proposal here is a 1 million square foot warehouse that is going to be built 1.2 miles from a home that I bought 20 years ago. I plan to spend the rest of my life in. I've raised my children in. And now that road on High Falls already has a speed limit of 50 miles an hour. And I'm going to spend my retirement listening to tractor trailers go by all day, all night long. I'm going to lose everything I have put into my house. I have rebuilt this house from the ground up. And I think it is sad and disrespectful to this community to sell something out just that, what, we're going to just basically sell our land for what? We're not gonna get taxes on it. We're gonna get jobs, we're gonna get more traffic, we're gonna get more hazards. And I just find it very disrespectful that we would even consider this at this point. I think that everybody else that has spoken before me has already outlined everything that I want to say, so I'm going to cut my time short, but I respectfully request that you guys vote this down. Thank you.
David Lynch.
David Lynch, 185 North Walkers Mill Road. The application submitted site plan has a 23-acre building and about 20 to 30 acres paved surface, totaling 45 to 55 acres. I believe this is too large for 86 acres, way too large, especially considering the stream buffer and detention ponds. The mass grading will create a very deep cut on the north end and in turn, large fill area on the south end. The very deep cut on the north end greatly diminishes an opportunity to maintain an undisturbed buffer on the north, east, and west sides of the property. Rezoning application provided to me several items listed on page 2 and 7 are not in the packet of the rezoning application. I wonder if they were turned in with the application to begin with. To me, it would be very meaningful to have the information to review and consider. The rezoning applicant's response on page 3 of the application is false to the questions posed. The answers are evasive and misleading. Environmental impact. I believe stormwater discharge this site will raise floodplain elevations of properties downstream. This will diminish the value and usability of those properties. It could affect existing structures downstream. The pollutants that escape the site will be very detrimental to the downstream habitat and farm animals, air pollution, noise pollution, driveway wildlife to surrounding properties which remain rural. The value of such properties will be lowered. This water goes to Cabin Creek, then High Falls Lake. Light pollution, night sky, heard about that already. neighboring homes and neighboring joy. The glow will be worse than the largest Walmart parking lot. With trucks, 400 parking spaces, if 20 or more all the time, day and night, the beep up, the reverse beepers, loud truck motors, truck traffic, Highway 16, the only road to provide entry to property. The site shows the entry there. While no trucks go anywhere they can, they'll all go up and down all the other secondary roads around, as previously mentioned. All these roads already have no truck signs on it, and hey, how many trucks you see come down your road, folks? These roads are not designed for truck traffic. The conditions of most of the road, counter deteriorating, will be damaged severely. Look at the conditions of Jackson Road caused by the trucks coming from Dollar General Warehouse. Just drive that way every evening on your way home from work. I believe the site plan, the probability that the site will require a majority of topography change will require major tree removal. Section 2208 AKB Development Standards, Section Q, tree removal states 20% of existing trees shall remain. This could possibly be achieved if you leave a 7,500-foot buffer. Fully undisturbed, fully natural terrain, wooded buffer. The northwest boundaries of the property. A buffer of this type could potentially address some of the previously issues stated. I believe the developer of the property, as presented by the developer of the rezoning.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Mike Laster.
Mike Laster, 1415 Vineyard Road. Most people have been speaking lives in the immediate neighborhood. I live on the other side of the county. But you know, this affects everybody in the county. Zoning codes was designed to protect the property. Years ago, back when I was a kid, county commissioners started talking about zoning codes, and big property owners said, whoa, you ain't gonna tell me what I can do with my property. But then they come to find out, you know, I built my nice, back then, $100,000 house, and somebody comes in and buys a pasture across the front in front of you and puts in a mobile home. Jacks up 2 or 3 cars in the front yard, and they destroy the property value of your house. I come from the airline industry. Several years back, a bunch of my friends moved from Chicago to the Atlanta area. They were looking for homes. They sold in Chicago, and they come to Georgia, and they thought, man, we can buy mansions down here. But they also realized they might have to move in a few years, and they wanted protection of their property. That's what zoning codes is supposed to do, protect the property owner. The thing is, most of those didn't come to Spalding County. Right up the road from me, a few years back, a guy had 2.5 acres, a right nice little house, and he started adding on to it. He really wanted to improve his place and have a nice place, but there was 2.5 acres beside him. He was afraid something might happen over there that hurt his property, but his real estate agent promised him, oh, we'll take care of you. You're in good shape, the way it's zoned, everything's good. Shortly after that, the guy bought the property, run a driveway up one side of the property and put 5 duplexes in there, backed up to the man's property. Now, that just destroyed his property value. That was bad enough. The thing was, shortly about that time, the family fell apart. They would need to get a divorce and sell the house. They owed more on the house than they could sell the property for because their property just got destroyed. You're looking at destroying these people's property. All we're asking for is please protect the citizens of Spalding County.
Billy Kimball. Billy Kimball? Yes, sir. No worries.
Got 2 speeds, wide open and shut down.
Okay. I'm Billy Kimball. I live at 282 Tomochichi Road at the corner of Tomochichi and Chiha. You heard that before tonight. The proposed entrance of this warehouse development is directly across from my driveway. As a tax-paying citizen of Spalding County for 50 years or more, 50 years plus, I asked this zoning committee to deny this request for rezoning. It should be obvious that rezoning from agriculture, residential to commercial property will destroy our community as we know it. However, I highlight why this is likely something you wouldn't vote for should it be developed in your own front yard. Removal of natural woodlands and replacing with a 1 million square foot warehouse, trucking traffic and noise 24 hours per day, foul odor, bright lights, excessive neighborhood traffic, decline in poverty value, all of it which contribute to a significant decline in our quality of life. Furthermore, I don't feel that this community has been shown the proper respect regarding the rezoning, particularly when considering the magnitude of this proposal. Rezoning signs posted only about 2 weeks ago. It has been nearly impossible to discover what the proposal has been and has not been transparent. All seemingly has been kept very quiet. Why here? Why do this to us? Why do this to this community that has counted on this area to remain residential when there are multitudes of other opportunities available with easy access to the interstate and already appropriately zoned for commercial use? Again, I ask that you deny this zoning request no differently than you would if this was in your own front yard.
Can someone help me with the name Hood? Yes, ma'am. Zant? Zante?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good evening. My name is Zonthi Hood, and I live at 307 Tomochichi Road, Griffin, Georgia. I won't repeat what's been said because what's been said is true. It's true about the traffic. It's true about danger, safety. But one thing I can say is when I was looking at the property that I currently live at, one thing that attracted me was I have a neighbor that rides horses, and she was waving to me. And that sold me on that property because it's a country area and it's nice land. And one thing that I can say is that I work over 12 hours a day, and I can come home and have like a mental peace, is what I'm saying. So no matter what I go through at work, when I come home, I know that I will have peace. However, if that particular construction does happen, then that will take away my peace. And I feel like it's my right to have my peace when I come home. So that's very important to me. And also, like the attorney stated, he stated that we don't know who the end user will be. So that means there will be a stranger in our backyards and in our front yards and on our side yards. And also, I have a garden, and I like to grow my food without putting anything in it. And when you have the runoffs and when you have all the carbon dioxide in the air that will damage my crops, well, I feel like that's unfair. But most importantly, I want you all to think, regardless of how long you all work, I'm pretty sure you're tired, you're burned out. But when you leave this place, you know that you can go home to your home and get the peace, the mental peace that you deserve. So please deny this and think about myself and my neighbors, our mental peace and sanity, because that's what sold me on the property, and I look forward to having that for the remainder of the time that I live at 307 Tomochichi Road. Thank you for your time.
Linda Chadwick? Okay. Thank you. Gerald Bailey?
listening to all, excuse me, listening to everyone here.
Hey,
With
state
the-
your name
State
and
your name
address
and your
for the
address,
record.
please, sir.
I'm sorry. My name's Gerald Bailey, 2724 High Falls Road, here in Griffin. I've lived in this community here since February of 1966. I've raised a family, been blessed with 5 sons. They're all in excellent health. And in the past year or two, a friend of mine says, "Hey, Gerald, we're going to get the name of that changed to Baileyville with all these sons." And 4 of those sons are now living close to me. We have grandchildren that have stayed with us year after year. But, and some of these notes, I kind of felt like I could just kind of toss them aside because everything that just about that I've got here is already been discussed. But if you'll bear with me for just a minute. You know, when you're driving out on 75 and you go from one intersection to another, you're going to see development going on like crazy. And also in that group of building, you're going to see the monster warehouses that are already built north of Griffin, and you go down to Forsyth and Macon, you see the same thing beginning to take place. And this might be a thought that shouldn't say, but with all these warehouses that are being built, are we storing goods that are being shipped into us from China? You know, everything you buy now and you look at, made in China. And so this morning I also took it upon myself to go out High Falls Road, and I went across the highway there at 75 and found a road where I could access that property. And it's amazing how after a few years ago that all this land was forest and maybe some farmland, and it was being utilized. But then also a few years back, 3 or 4 years ago, it was just covered with forest and farmland that was being used for the benefit of the community. But as I drove further down in there, I saw a sign that says, "Do not enter." I could possibly be incarcerated. And as I pulled down in to maybe take some pictures of all the development that's already taken place, as I pulled down in there, a vehicle from one of the development companies pulled down in front of me. And so I went around him and a little bit further, and I wanted to get out and take pictures of what all was going on. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a silver and gold versus family.
Daryl Bishop.
Sorry, folks.
Is it possible for that aerial view of the proposed building again, or is that already out?
Does that work for you? Is that okay?
The better with the trees around it. My name is Daryl Bishop. I live at 359 Tomochichi at the corner of this proposed development. I have 42 years in trucking, transportation, and warehousing. Very familiar with the industry. This will be a 24-hour, 7-day operation if it's approved. I run loads all over the country. I know what truck drivers do. They will take every shortcut they can, and I don't blame them. They have one of the most difficult jobs on planet Earth. But I would like to make a couple of points here. Number one, I was going to read all these lots, but I'll give you a sum. Currently, as best I can determine, there's 1,305 acres already approved for commercial development. That's on the books as best I can tell, with very minimal occupation or construction on any of these sites. Adding another 88 acres, I don't see much benefit to that.
My second point is the devaluation of our properties. I've already put my house up for sale just because of this proposal. Hadn't planned on it, but at this point, with it already on several commercial websites available for construction to start September 2022, looks like it's pretty well through. I had not planned on moving out of Spalding County, but at this point, I want to minimize my losses and get out. These residents here, my neighbors, they know my wife and I because we walk the entire area just about daily. And a lot of people know them as the people that walk all the time. I also know that the way you attract these large corporations in is through tax incentives, through either a graduated scale or a deferred tax timetable. That leaves the burden of the taxes on the residents of this county. And of course, there's no details on that, but I know from my experience in the field that when you attract these large corporations, they want tax incentives. And they may pay some taxes, but they're not going to pay their full tax burden. And I would ask you to either postpone this, table it, or at least allow these residents time to seek legal counsel for devaluation of property values surrounding this. But when you look here, my property is right there on Tomochichi, right in the corner of the building. So I have a very vested interest in that. Thank you.
Mr. Robert Wilcher?
Robert Wilcher, 179 Cheehaw. I'm directly across from the middle of the building. The water that runs on that property starts on my property. That doesn't really mean anything, but I'm going to be right across from the smoke and everything. My wife is disabled, and she likes to come outside in the fresh air in a wheelchair and play with the dog. If those trucks are over there, I drove a fire truck for Griffin for 25 years, and I also drove big trucks later. I know what the smoke will do to you. And she won't be able to come outside. She has asthma, emphysema, as do a lot of the neighbors, a lot of older people. So she'll just have to stay in the house if that happens with all that smoke. It is a small piece of property. I've been there since '71. My dad built a house on 20 acres. And that 86 acres used to be a farm, a type of farm. In fact, Mr. O'Brien that owned it used to let me keep my horses over there. And there was an old home place over there. There's still an old barn over there. And I don't know what they're going to do with all them buzzards that live in it, if they do that. But I would appreciate if y'all would table this or not approve it, because it's going to smoke up the neighborhood, I'm sure, and noise. And it's quiet out there now. You can hear the crickets and everything at night, everything's just quiet. That road, Tomochichi Road, I have another place up at the other end of Tomochichi that attaches to the 20 acres on Cheehaw. You can stand out there by the mailbox, and you might see a car every 3 minutes come down that road. I don't know what'll happen if you have that many people working. Another thing, they can't get help in Griffin at all the restaurants in different places. They're going to take all the workers and put them in that place out there. Who's going to run the rest of the things? I see signs all over Griffin. I think there's a lot of folks staying at home that don't want to work. Back when I was young, I would have took any kind of job to make a few dollars, but We got a lot of empty places in Griffin, shops and stores. But anyway, I'd appreciate it if y'all would think about this. I know you wouldn't want it across the street from you. And I'm sitting back off the road a little ways, but still, that's not gonna make any difference.
Thank you. Would you state your address for me again, please?
179 Chial.
Thank you very much. Dave Bailey.
My name's Dave Bailey, excuse me. I'm at 346 Cheehaw Road, Griffin. It's very hard for me to be up here. I came to this city to retire. I work for Home Depot in McDonough. I know for a fact that that 1 million square foot is the same that I work at. I know there's truck drivers. I know the people I work with. A lot of good people, a lot of bad habits. Trash, noise pollution, light pollution. It's terrible. I work first shift. I get there at 3 a.m. I get off at 2 in the afternoon. And what I have to deal with is not what I want to deal with 4 houses up the street from me. You wouldn't want to live in Griffin. We came out to live in East Griffin, nice and quiet. You got animals. They're all going to be displaced, not just the people. It's not the way you want to do things. We came here for family. We'll leave and move somewhere else, and you guys will have to deal with it. It is not a good thing, I'm telling you. Vote against it. Deny it. Thank you.
Anthony Bailey.
Anthony Bailey, 313 Tomochichi Road. I mean, everything's been said that can be said. I mean, it's been said very well. The biggest thing with me is, I mean, I've got a picture on my phone of the sign that was put up 2 weeks ago for this meeting, and the sign is pointed towards the road. So if you're driving by it, you're not going to see it. I guess I mean, if that's the way we do it, I don't know. But, and the building is already up for lease, so we know it's out there. It's said that we can break ground in September, so, I mean, somebody feels very comfortable about something. On the map up there, my house, basically, I am at the parking lot where this is going to be built, on Tomochichi Road. So you're telling me a 10-foot buffer. I'll invite all you over for dinner and let you come to my house and walk 10 feet in the woods, and I promise you, you'll see my house. And this is what I'm going to have to look at. And it just doesn't make sense the way it's all come about. I'm very confused about it, and I hope somebody can shed some light for me. And maybe if it works out with the mobile food trucks, I can put a food truck out there. You know? But yeah, it's very disappointing just the way everything, like I said, if it's done the correct way, I'm all about it. But just there's been too many things that have been shady about this that just don't make sense to me. So, but thank you guys. I got to get back to work. I appreciate it.
Clint O'Brien. Clint O'Brien. Sandra Malloy. All right, Mr. Chairman, that's everyone who has signed up. What was your name, sir? right, thank you. Yes, please come up. Please state your name and your address, please.
My name is Alan Dubberly, and I live at 526 Tomochichi, and my son lives at 482 Tomochichi. If you look at the map, on Tomochichi Road to the right, that's our two pieces of property right there. I cannot tell you how much I want y'all to vote this down, because I have horses, I have a grandson that, my kids just had a grandson. There's other kids in the community. This is gonna be nothing but a traffic nightmare. Those tractor trailers, and I have a bunch of people in my family that drive trucks for a living, they don't care. They're gonna be all up and down Chihal, Tomochichi, and all these other little roads. The traffic's gonna be terrible. The emissions from the trucks are gonna be unlivable. I have horses, that, you know, it's gonna affect them. It's gonna affect me and my wife and my kids. Just this whole idea, and the whole idea of them coming in and out on 16, that whole intersection there is gonna have to be completely redone, because there is no way a tractor trailer can come out and go left and go back to the highway without causing all kinds of chaos. It's not happening. My neighbors around me and on Chihal, the buffer is nothing. A 25-foot, somebody stated earlier that the property on Chihal is very thick. Come over to my house. It's not thick at all on that side. 25 foot you can clearly see through. I respectfully ask that y'all deny this, not table it, deny it. Thank you.
Yes, sir, that's it.
Okay, I think in fairness to the applicant, we're gonna give him about 6 minutes to come back and rebut a few things.
Chairman, Mr. Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to speak before you again. There were a lot of things said tonight in opposition. I will stand predominantly on the presentation that we made in opening. I will say that this request complies with your future land use map, your comprehensive plan. It is the type of development which the comprehensive plan and the planning goals that have been set by the governing authority of this county have directed landowners as well as private citizens and private developers to pursue when they make decisions about what to do with their property. That plan also guides this board and the Board of Commissioners when they make their decision. Again, you've heard a lot of things about traffic, environmental concerns, lighting. You've heard a plethora of things. I reiterate that this request is also consistent with the approval directly across Highway 16. That parcel is similarly situated in shape as well as access. Additionally, we would ask that you make a recommendation that the Board of Commissioners approve this application consistent with staff's recommendation and staff's recommended conditions with the minor modifications suggested by the applicant. If you have any specific questions about some of the concerns that were raised tonight, I'd be happy to address those, but they were numerous, and to address one would be to the detriment of addressing another. Well, again, we'll stand behind our presentation. We think this complies with every planning document. Your staff has reviewed it, as well as Three Rivers Regional Commission, and they have both made positive recommendations. I ask you to make the consistent decision that is guided by your precedent as well as your established written policy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Well, yes.
it's your floor.
Okay, guys. Frank, you got anything to add?
Not to add,
I didn't hear my name called around the hallway.
I'm
late.
tempted right.
too late. We're moving on here. Frank?
I don't have any questions, but right now I'm tempted to table this.
Y'all better think about it.
Got a gavel down there?
Waiting on you, Frank.
I said, at this particular point, I'm inclined to table this. I do not see how we can pour all of this traffic out on Tomochichi Road. You've got 4.5 million square feet of warehouse space being already developed, or going to be developed, of High Falls and this. And I'd like to see a little bit more done to address these people that live on Tomochichi Road. I'm probably going to be the only, and Chiha, I'm probably going to be the only person that feels that way right now, but I have seen this coming from Henry County. And you drive into McDonough on 155, that it is an absolute zoo certain times of the day. I'd like to see the developer try to work on this thing and make sure that we limit the damage that's going to be done to these houses on Tomochichi. And that's just one person. You know, you can, I don't necessarily have a second to that, but that's the way I feel.
Okay. Walter?
Yeah, it's very difficult to make this decision, and actually particularly right now. I do have a couple things I'd like to get clarification on, big issues. Actually, overall, I'd like to have a lot more information, but maybe that's not possible. But the three things that stood out to me was, are there any restrictions in code or in practice on truck use? And the reason I bring this up is because this is similar, after the Dollar General warehouse, people out there were concerned about traffic, and I had occasion to run into someone a couple years later, and I said, you know, how's it been? They said, well, the traffic isn't near as bad as we thought, but when somebody comes in and hooks and backs up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you hear it. You know, it's like an alarm clock. So I wondered if there's any professional, you know, literature or things where there are some restrictions where they can't back up between certain hours, or anything like that we could look at.
Mr. Chair, can we have quiet in the gallery, please?
Okay,
The
let's
public
hold it
hearing has
down.
closed.
So is there anything like, any guidance you have, or anything like that we can look at? Because I don't think I don't think our ordinances cover it. I know we have noise ordinances, but I don't think that covers this.
So at this time, that is the mechanism that is available to Spalding County, is the noise ordinance, and it is enforced at those hours by the sheriff's department as well as code enforcement during regular hours.
Okay.
So the whole idea, Mr. Chair, please.
Can y'all just hold it down a little bit?
The idea is that the noise ordinance is there to be enforced. It does apply to these properties. And those are the mechanisms that we currently have in place. Can we further restrict them in that use, in that particular noise abatement? Yes, sir, we can. We can certainly evaluate those should you choose to table, or if you recommend that as a moving forward point to the Board of Commissioners.
It's just, yeah, it's something, I don't know where it goes, but it's something that I think we need to look into a little more strongly, because we've already got the two places up, but we got two up now by Dollar General, and apparently there's gonna be more pressure on these sorts of developments, so I'd like to see us get a handle on it. But I don't know how to apply this. Second thing I'm questioning, concerned, why not, when we kind of danced around this on a recent development like this, why not, what's the problem with leaving existing vegetation? Why do they want to tear things out and plant little pine trees?
For two reasons. The first is to make the development conducive to sustainability and long lasting
Aesthetics
actual
from the
buildings.
interior.
Yes, sir, the
Okay.
interior, the building itself. In order to do that, you've got to have flat space to do
Yeah.
it. To make flat space, you gotta move dirt.
They want a blank canvas to work with.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
The second reason is, the reason that we require the replanting is to stabilize the site over
Oh,
time as
no,
well.
I'm all for that. I just wondered
Right.
why we were ripping everything out, to begin
Because
with.
in order to build, you've got to flatten it out.
Oh, yeah, I understand.
Yes, sir. Just like with houses
I
that
understand
we
that
all
to
live in.
to some extent, but I think sometimes they could leave more than they want to. The final thing that's confusing me that I don't understand, because, again, I don't necessarily have all the information. I've heard this said that the county's gonna be giving them tax breaks. I don't, or, you know, I don't know anything about that. I don't know if in fact that's the case. I'm not even sure it's germane to our decision. Maybe it doesn't even matter. But I guess it matters to me as to whether this produces income or whether it's expense, because if it's not producing tax revenue, forget
That
about
I'm
it.
aware of at this time, there's not been a tax incentive.
Yeah, I didn't think so either.
Yeah. I hope that answers the question. That's all I'm aware of on the
Yeah,
property.
no,
However, I do know that recently in the most recent industrial park development that we had, which comparatively to Renai, which is an extraordinary building, is actually very small, is the Project Ocean Ecopole development. Their incentive, their impact fees were just over $1 million. So that's going straight into our parks and emergency services.
Right, yeah.
So, to my knowledge, there's not been any offer extended on tax incentives. There's not been any offer extended on impact fees. There's not been any offer extended on building fees. And
Offering to build a fire station.
there's been no offer to build a fire station,
Right,
no, sir.
okay. I got you. Thank you
No,
very,
sir,
thank you
there
very
has
much.
not.
That's what, and with those, and I presume you concur with those answers.
Couldn't have said it better.
Okay, and with that, you know, I don't know, I feel like I don't know everything, and I'm not real comfortable at the moment.
Okay.
So I guess, I'm leaning towards tabling, I guess. But I'm not sure what's gonna be accomplished by kicking, you know, we need to accomplish something if we're gonna table it, rather than just kick the can down the road for another month.
Right.
Mr.
So-
Cox, if it would appease, should the board wish to table, should the commission wish to table, there is a precedence for us to hold a town meeting of the proposed development for the applicant to actually make the presentation to the residents, rather than them talking amongst themselves with the limited information that's available. We would be happy to facilitate that as the county in a public building. We would also be happy to provide any access to any application, which is public record and can be requested at any time. However, that is the decision of the commission.
Yeah, well, I have to say that would help me. I don't think it's been employed while I've been involved in the planning commission, but I really do kind of feel like we need to hear more, and we need some, maybe discussion, but definitely think we need to hear more, and look at small things, because small things matter. I mean, when he mentioned diesel fuel, I went, oh God, I never thought of that. You know? And I don't really know how serious that is. I mean, if that's a major problem, and we gotta be concerned with runoff or not. I just feel like I wanna know more to be comfortable.
So, Mr. Cox, many of these issues, as we've discussed with industrial developments previously, many of these issues are developed and determined and dealt with at the land disturbance permitting issue, once we have the
Okay,
civil
yeah.
drawings. Many of these impacts are also dealt with at that level. I understand that for many people, that perception is that we're putting the cart before the horse. However, whenever you deal with the standards of a land disturbance permit in the engineered and the civil drawings, you're dealing with the exact specifications of the development of the building, and you can regulate them accordingly.
Well, good, and I appreciate you pointing that out, because I don't wanna be chasing rabbits or dealing with things, you know. I think there's enough major points, so, you know, feel free to restrict me to the big questions that are before me, rather than little things that are gonna be determined down the line. I
Please
understand.
note that in the minutes.
She'll probably never hear it again.
Bruce?
Okay, I also have some concerns with some details and stuff that may need to be worked through. You know, we've become certainly a corridor there. 16 was set up for, you know, commercial, as a commercial corridor, and to do some of this stuff. But again, as we do it, we have to do our due diligence and try to do the best we can to make sure that it is reflective. And there is a concern, I mean, with the work going on over across the county line, over in Butts County, and all the big buildings there and everything else coming along the pike. And we've already talked about the Henry County corridors and how we used to go up and down those all the time, and now they're more and more difficult and you try to avoid them. You know, I'd kind of hate to think that we couldn't get to 75 very easily anymore. So, you know, I think we do need to do our part to think it through as well as we can. There was a reference earlier about, you know, clear cutting and some limitations on some of the buffers and, you know, some of those aspects like we had talked about before. And I was one of the ones that in one of the properties before, from the engineering side of things, you know, understand and think it is beneficial to work with the areas and allow plantings when it makes sense and when the surrounding areas are like that. But one of the fellows that came up and spoke earlier mentioned something, and I did pull that up because it kind of resonated with me what he was saying there, and I don't even think he got to finish his conversation with it. But there is in the ordinance that deals with AKB, in the tree removal, it does state there that a minimum of 20% of all existing trees with a diameter exceeding 10 inches shall be retained. This requirement is in addition to the requirements of any required landscape area required in section 2206C and D. So, you know, I think if we got that in our ordinance and stuff, we need background information as to roughly what we're looking at for that kind of tree coverage out there and what 20% would look like. Because again, it may very well be that when you start looking at this thing and you've got to maintain 20%, you could do an undisturbed buffer, you know, around here just to kind of make some of those things comply. And so I think, you know, understand wanting to get out there and get ready for all the spec development and stuff, but I think they do need to do some of their due diligence as well as to making sure that they can abide by the ordinances and that we're holding them accountable for our ordinances that we have out there. There's some other things with some buffers and information in there that I didn't hear specifically talked about in some of the stuff tonight that I would like to have a little better understanding on as well with this AKB, because I do want to see the growth. I think it's important that we have good growth, and I want to continue to work to try to accommodate that here as best we can for this community.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to echo just a few thoughts of Mr. Ballard there. I have heard a number of people speak disparagingly about our comp plan tonight. And our comp plan, we really depend on that. That's the bones that we make a lot of our decisions around. And we do not lightly make a decision without considering that. And for nearly 30 years, since Arthur K. Bolton was improved out there, we've known that that was going to be a primary development corridor for industry and other things along that line. So we've had a number of years to kind of get our heads around that. That being said, I do have some questions around the buffer issues that kind of raged around tonight. And I do think those certainly need to be addressed and considered. I also think the information bandied about the tax or lack of taxes, I think in fairness, we need to be factual about that. Spalding County needs a tax base. They need it desperately. And so we don't necessarily want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And the other question I had that I'm not sure is even relevant at this time, but a warehouse such as this is being proposed, is it necessary that it would be a 24-hour-a-day operation? Is that written in stone?
Not certain. It depends on the user.
Yeah, it's end user specific.
And we don't know that.
Well, that's the thoughts I had. I certainly can identify with some of the feelings that were expressed tonight. That being said, I'll entertain a motion.
I need to just, does anybody else, I mean, am I the only one who would like a town meeting, or is that I am the only one who'd like it?
No, I think that's a good suggestion on Ms. Littlefield's part.
Yeah, okay, well, I mean, I don't want to create more work and drag people back again and again and again, but I think we could benefit from some more discussion. So I guess the motion would be to have the staff arrange a town meeting for the applicant and the public and us, so that we can have some dialogue and get some more facts before we make a final decision.
So, Mr. Cox, would your motion be to
I don't know.
table
Oh, yes, I'm
with
sorry.
direction
Yes.
to the staff
Yes,
to
yes.
facilitate a town hall type meeting?
What she said.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded. Those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Okay. All right, it's tabled.
Mr. Chair, at the risk of being a sore thumb here, do we want to put a time limit on how long they have to hold this town hall?
Well, I guess I'd have to ask you, what does your schedule look like? Is this something that you can put together?
I'm not doing anything between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. next Thursday.
I'm free then, too.
So, but my point, to that point, it's not really based on my schedule. I will be available to the residents of Spalding County as they need. That's not an issue. It will, I would like to have the opportunity to do it within before the next planning commission meeting. That way we have time to bring back a report to the planning commission of a summarized of what was said, and then you have the option to lift it from the table at that time.
If you've done
Mr.
town
Jones?
meetings,
Mr. Jones?
That will work.
So,
if you've done town meetings before, maybe you could suggest whether 1 hour, 2 hours, no more than 2 hours probably, but what you think a good time frame would be.
so my recommendation is always to hold a 2-hour block, and I personally am a fan of an open house style town meeting, so that there's plenty of representation from the applicant's side to interact and engage with residents, much like we have done comp plan meetings in the past. I think that's been very beneficial, not only for residents, it also reiterates the information in multiple formats, and it also gives people an opportunity to answer questions one-on-one, more conversation and discussion, rather than just having someone lecture.
Absolutely.
Mr.
Sounds
Jones?
like a plan.
Okay, so,
Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with the board, I would like to ask the district engineer for GDOT and Thomaston to be furnished with this, and any comment that he might like to make at this town meeting, I think would be appropriate.
The more the merrier.
I'll be sure to invite Tyler.
Okay.
Mr. Peak? Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll need a motion for inviting someone.
For the
No, for the
GDOT.
30, to bring back before the next meeting.
Yes, sir. So that,
Need a special
yes.
motion for that, she'll do that.
All right. Apparently, we need a motion to set the meeting, to bring it back, so it's here on the next zoning meeting, so I'm open to a motion.
If I knew what you wanted, I'd do it. I don't understand what you're asking me for.
Put staff on notice to meet and coordinate a town hall meeting within the next 30 days. Yep, correct.
Add 30 days to what I said earlier, or what you said earlier. Just add 30 days to that. How's that work?
Okay.
So the motion, the item is already tabled. The new motion on the table would be to direct staff to hold this town hall meeting prior to the next meeting of the planning commission, so that this item can be back on the agenda at your next meeting.
Correct.
Sure.
Is that your motion, Mr. Cox?
Yes, that's well said. Thank you.
So moved, Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Second.
Okay, those in favor signify with your right hand. It's unanimous. All right.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our July the 26th meeting. Have our editors been busy?
It's not so much this time. You want to go first?
Would you mind taking just a moment of break so we can
Go for it.
Mr. Chair, can I make a request that if we have any edits to the minutes, that in the interest of time, that we can just submit those edits and amend accordingly?
Let's let the room empty. We'll
Thank you.
take care of business.
I didn't have my.
Well, I am sort of wondering how they're going to configure.
But if it's gonna, it's just, we'll never get back to it. Mr. Chairman, you should probably ask the room.
Yes, please. We're not police here, so if you ask the room to be clear. I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't mind, we're still in open session, so, and we're recording, so if you don't mind, please step outside of the room if you don't have business.
Okay, I think we can go ahead with the minutes. I totally agree with our planner that we need to send any edits in by email.
Mr. Yeomans, I'm the director.
So, there are a few. Somebody can't spell trees.
Apparently.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes, which I have signed. Here they are.
Wait, no, we can't, I don't think we can do that.
Yes, you, Mr. Cox, yes, you can. Yes.
No, Ms. Wyndham, I believe that we have to read the changes and approve the changes before we vote on them. In essence, if we go ahead and approve the minutes now, and there was,
Typically, if
let's say there was a devious director of community development, that person, he or she, could essentially rewrite history, and they would be accepted as approved minutes of the planning commission.
I would agree that if you have edits, that you need to state those, and then you would approve the minutes as corrected.
Yes, and they would come back to us at the next,
They don't have to come back to you.
but
They will be posted.
they will be posted.
They will be posted.
So
So you,
it would be our responsibility to say,
to review them.
confirm
and-
that they're accurate.
And make sure that those edits were made.
I'm
But
comfortable-
they will be in the minute, it will be, the edits will be in the minutes, will be reflected in the minutes of this meeting as well. Because you'll state what you want what the correction should be.
But we're sending them in by email.
I think what Ms. Wyndham was saying was, go ahead and state your corrections for the record, and then we will approve those as amended through your statement. So go ahead and make your statement for the corrections that you
So
would
you
like to
want,
make.
you want the
Correct.
corrections,
That's
not
And
correct.
if you are sending them in by email
Oh.
in advance, Ms. Littlefield has the opportunity to make those corrections prior to the meeting, so that the minutes that you're
Yeah.
actually approving at the meeting have already been corrected.
Okay.
We're, okay.
Go first, Bruce.
All right, well, I just said, one in particular on, I'm not sure.
It would be helpful if the pages were numbered in the future.
Yeah. So it was under, item 6. And it's, you go over one full page and then it's a long paragraph, there, and down toward the bottom, about 5 lines up, said the final staff condition, condition number 8, would require the site plan to, before the Board of, I think it's supposed to be to go or to be presented to the Board of Commissioners, to be approved.
To come before is probably.
Like I said, there's a few little typos, but that was just a misword, just a clarification.
Okay, very quickly, at the beginning, item 2, second paragraph under Brian Davidson, third line, Mr. Davidson restated, not reinstated. Next paragraph at the very end, it says, new tie-in coming in. It should be, I believe, new tie-ins coming, period. Further down that page, under item 2, under John Palmer, very end of that paragraph, I think, yeah, you just need, there's just some extra verbiage in there. You said should be composed of 1 acre lots rather than composed of that these would be 1 acre lots. Nothing on the next page. Under, going down to item 6, other business, under Steve Jones, first paragraph under Steve Jones, next, third paragraph from the bottom, 25-foot planted buffer in an intent. I think it should be an attempt rather than intent to be a good neighbor. A couple times hereafter, fifth paragraph down, halfway through it, we talk about those are seat backs. No, they're setbacks. And I think we got an auto spell correct several times in here that turns setbacks into seat backs. The very last paragraph of that page, Mr. 70-foot, Mr. Yeoman's the first paragraph, at the very end of it.
It's trees.
Yeah, it's trees rather than tress, yeah. Okay, going on, this next paragraph, starting with Mr. Ballard asked if the trees live. Are we okay? We've got, this second sentence in, she mentioned that there's an extra word there, that there had not been full. So they're taking a word out at the end of the third line. Again, on fifth line down, you have seat backs, you need to be setbacks. 3 lines down from that, you have, you have an incomplete sentence. Mr. Ballard said that there would be a substantial amount of grading and having a nicely planted area with good taste. I don't know, it's probably trying to convey something there, but it doesn't. 2 lines down, you have setback, seat back, setback. Going down one further, you talk about the future land use designation for the church partial is C1. I think what we mean to say there is that the zoning designation for the church partial is C1 and C2. And then another 3 lines down, you have seat back. Again, I think it's auto spill. Next paragraph down, 5th line, you have many trees not worth saving and enchanting, probably mean enhancing. 3 lines down from that, Mr. Jones added that those conditions were not imposed on their neighbor rather than to their neighbor. Next to the last paragraph on that page, last sentence of that. However, given the onerous tenant, I'm not even sure. I don't think the tenant can be onerous. I'm not sure what the tenant's supposed to be. I think you'd have to go back and figure somebody who can remember. But I don't think the tenant, I don't think he said that anybody thinks that the tenant was onerous. You could add a spacing after that between the paragraphs, starting with Mr. Bellard. And then, on commissioners' comments, oh, no, excuse me, Mrs. Littlefield's report. The first paragraph of Ms. Littlefield's director report, I think that the last sentence, it looks like "and" was struck through.
There's a strike there.
It does to me anyway when I blow it up. So I don't think you want to strike through that. Then you get to commissioners' comments, and Mr. Cox. I don't think I apologize for having trouble with with generating and posting staff reviews. I think I continue to be concerned with the generating and posting staff reviews. I have nothing to do with that, and I don't feel like apologizing for the problems on that. Going down 3 lines, he stated that he understood there's a lot going on, and he doesn't expect that to become a priority. I guess that's okay, but I don't want it to reflect that I don't think it's not important. And then finally, that's it. So now, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So now, having done that, I say, yeah, with those changes, I move to approve.
And I think that Ms. Littlefield's point is valid, that lots of those are basically typographical errors, sentence structure type things that could be easily corrected by email in advance of your meeting, so that the minutes that are submitted to you for approval have already had those corrections made to them.
I would like to echo that, because I could not follow the changes that were being made.
Well, I understand that. I would like to ask if it's my job to edit and proof the staff's work.
If you're gonna make changes to the minutes or identify issues to the minutes, then Mr. Cox, the answer is yes.
For the minutes.
Correct.
Is that true for all staff work?
You're just approving the minutes. The staff reports are essentially reports of opinion based upon the
Okay.
Application of zoning principles with which you can agree or disagree.
Okay. Put a pin in that. We'll come back to it.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve the minutes as edited.
Walter, you made that.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, signify. All right, approved. Okay, I think I'm willing to say I'm gonna forego my commissioner's comments tonight, but that is where we are. You got anything to say? Hearing none.
Oh, wait. I was waiting for Frank.
Okay.
Okay. I won't belabor the point. I have, when I get the staff materials, I have a hard time with them. What she calls clerical errors, I call mistakes. To say that you approve something, or say you reject, to say that staff recommends a rejection when you meant approval, to say that a project is light manufacturing when in fact it's R1 with a conservation easement. Those things take time for me to unwind. I don't know what's expected of me as a volunteer, but I feel like as a volunteer, I shouldn't have to fight my way through to understanding what's trying to be communicated to me. But I have complained about this in the past, and I've asked the staff to do better. So tonight, I'm not going to do that. Being at full Karen, I'm going to ask the manager. Mr. Steve, Dr. Steve, you are the manager, aren't you?
Yes, sir, I am.
Can you see that we have a better product, or attempt to see that we have products that have at least been proofread? I mean, we've had the same cut and paste error in one staff report for the last 2 times.
Yes, sir.
I mean, well, look, and again, you know, okay, maybe I'm being too picky, but like I said, I sit down and read something, I go, wait, that's not the right zoning. Oh, wait, is this a conservation subdivision? Oh, wait, that dedication. There's a lot that, like I said, that I have to fight my way through to understanding. And when I worked with I worked in the public sector most of my career. When I worked with volunteers, my attitude was make it easy as possible on them because they're doing me a favor. And so I guess, from a personal point of view, I don't like having obstacles put up to my performing my task. And that's it.
Bruce?
I think I'm good, sir.
Okay. I think I'm good too. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Unanimous.
Do you want your binder back for next time?
Yes, please.
I've got my original copy.
Well, yeah. Oh, and I forgot to say, it's our original stuff we did. Yeah, and don't, yeah. Well, I don't necessarily think it is, and I don't think you should be concerned that we want more information. Yeah.
Let me know.
It is, as I said, 30 years we've known that's where the development